The blue water world turned red under the dying sun. Chancellor Vila stood at the observation window and watched another colony ship explode in the distance. She could feel the deaths through the telepathic network that connected all people. 3,000 minds went silent in an instant. "How many does that make?" she asked quietly. Her advisor Mora trembled beside her. His skin shifted from calm blue to frightened purple. 12 colonies lost. 40 billion of our people are gone. The void swarm moves closer to the everyday. Vila closed her eyes. The swarm had appeared 6 months ago from deep space. They were not like anything the galaxy had seen before. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply consumed everything in their path. The silicon-based creatures ate metal, rock, and organic matter without difference. Entire planets were stripped to nothing but dust. They had never known war. Their civilization had spent 10,000 years building art, music, and philosophy. They had no weapons, no soldiers, no concept of violence beyond the abstract. "Have the other species responded to our distress call?" Vila asked. Mora's colors darkened further. "All 12 civilized species have sent their regrets. The said helping us would violate their principle of non-interference. The Empire said they cannot spare forces. The Federation of Free Worlds," he paused. "They said we are already dead and they will not waste lives on a lost cause." Vila felt something crack inside her chest. They were alone. The galaxy would let them die. "Chancellor, there is one response," Mora said carefully, "from an unknown system." "Show me." The holographic display activated. It showed a small yellow star in an unmapped region. The third planet from that star had sent a signal, just 2 words in the galactic common language: "We come." "What species are they?" Vila asked. "Unknown. The computer found leaked data transmissions from their world. They call their planet Earth. They call themselves humans." Mora pulled up images on the screen. "Chancellor, I must advise caution. Look at what we found." The screens filled with horror. Humans fighting humans with terrible weapons. Cities burning. Massive explosions that could destroy entire regions. Videos of humans hunting other creatures for food. Data files about thousands of wars throughout their history. "They are predators," Mora whispered. "Look at their eyes, forward-facing, built for hunting. Their teeth are designed for tearing meat. Their entire evolution is based on violence." Vila studied the images. The humans looked strange. They stood upright on 2 legs like many species, but something about them seemed wrong. Their faces showed emotions she could not read. Their bodies were compact and dense with muscle. Every movement suggested coiled strength. "They live on a," Mora continued. "Gravity twice what we consider comfortable. Atmosphere filled with reactive oxygen. Massive predators everywhere, disease, natural disasters. Their entire planet seems designed to kill them, yet they survived. They thrived." "Are they coming to help us or to conquer us?" Vila asked. "I do not know, but Chancellor, they are the only ones who answered." Vila watched another distant explosion through the window. More deaths rippled through the telepathic network. The swarm would reach thee in 3 days, perhaps 4 if they were lucky. "Send them our coordinates," she said. "If we must die, at least we will know someone heard our cry." "Chancellor, they could be worse than the swarm," Mara protested. Vila turned to face him. Her colors shifted to a determined gold. "The swarm will kill every single one of our people. These humans might kill us, or they might help us. A chance is better than certain death." 2 days passed. The swarm reached the outer orbit of the defense ships tried to stop them, but they were designed for science and exploration, not combat. The swarm tore through them like paper. Vila stood in the command center watching the battle. Millions of her people were evacuating to the southern continent, but there was nowhere to truly run. When the swarm landed, it would be over. "Chancellor, unknown vessel entering the system," a technician called out. The screen showed a ship appearing from faster-than-light travel. It was ugly compared to designs. All angles and armor plating. Weapon systems covered its hull. It looked like it was built for one purpose only: war. "They came," Vila whispered. "Receiving transmission," the technician said. A human face appeared on the screen, male with dark eyes and short black hair. His face looked tired but determined. When he spoke, the translator struggled with the harsh sounds of his language. "This is captain of the Earth ship Indomitable. We received your distress call. Where do you need us?" Vila felt hope for the first time in months. "The swarm is everywhere. We have no weapons, no military. We do not know how to fight." The human smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. It showed teeth. "That's okay," Captain said. "Fighting is what we do best." The Indomitable moved toward the swarm fleet. Vila watched in fascination and fear. The beasts from Earth had arrived. She just hoped they had called the right kind of monster. The Indomitable cut through space like a blade. Inside the ship, Captain studied the holographic display showing the swarm's positions. His tactical officer stood beside him, her face calm despite the chaos they were flying into. "Analysis?" asked. Pointed at the swarm of enemy ships. "They move like insects. No individual thought, just hive behavior. They are adapting to this energy weapons. Each time they shoot them, the next wave has better resistance." "So they learn," said. "They evolve," corrected. "Fast, the never had a chance." Lieutenant entered the bridge. He was shorter than but built like a tank. His Marines were ready in the deployment bay. "Captain, my teams are prepared. Just point us at the enemy." "You will get your chance," promised. "How are the engines?" The engineer's voice came through the speakers. She sounded tired but steady. "The FTL drive is holding together with tape and prayers, Captain. The weapon systems are good. Just tell me what you want to shoot." Smiled slightly. His crew had volunteered for this mission knowing they might never return home. Earth's government had asked for volunteers to answer the alien distress call. Thousands had stepped forward. His team was chosen because they were the best, also because they had the least to lose. Most of them had lost family or friends to disasters, wars, or disease. They understood loss. "Incoming transmission from the communications officer reported." Chancellor Vila appeared on screen. She looked exhausted. Her skin color kept shifting between different shades. "Captain, the swarm is landing on our northern continent. We are evacuating, but there are still millions of civilians there." "We will handle it," said. "Prepare for ground deployment." "Finally," said, and left the bridge. The Indomitable descended into the atmosphere. Through the windows, the crew could see the beautiful water world below. Crystal cities floated on vast oceans, but the northern continent was already being consumed. Black masses of the swarm covered the land like a spreading infection. "They are eating everything," observed. "Buildings, vehicles, even the ground itself." Felt anger burn in his chest. "Take us down near the largest concentration. Let's get their attention." The ship landed hard on a beach near one of the cities. The rear bay doors opened and let his Marines out. Each human wore armor and carried weapons that looked primitive compared to galactic technology. Rifles that fired metal bullets, blades for close combat, explosive charges. Civilians watched from a distance as the humans deployed. One scientist approached cautiously. His name was, and he had been assigned to observe the humans. "Why do you use such old weapons?" asked through his translator device. "Energy weapons are much more efficient." Checked his rifle and grinned. "Maybe, but the swarm has never seen bullets before. Hard to adapt to something you have never experienced." The swarm noticed the humans. A wave of silicon creatures rushed toward them across the beach. They looked like a mix between insects and machines, with jagged limbs and glowing cores. "Hold position," ordered calmly. The Marines formed a firing line, watched in confusion. Why were they not running? The swarm moved fast like a dark wave of death. "Fire," said. The sound of gunfire shocked. He had never heard anything so loud. The bullets tore through the swarm creatures, shattering their silicon bodies. Explosions followed as grenades turned groups of enemies into fragments. But more kept coming, always more. Falling back to position 2, ordered. The Marines retreated in perfect coordination. The swarm followed, thinking they were winning. They walked into the trap. Hidden explosive charges detonated across the beach. The blast threw swarm creatures into the air. The Marines advanced again, firing controlled bursts. Realized something terrifying. The humans were not just fighting, they were hunting. Every movement was calculated. Every shot was efficient. They wasted nothing. They showed no fear. The swarm began to retreat. Could not believe it. The swarm never retreated, but they were pulling back from the humans. "Sir, you made them run away," said in shock. Reloaded his rifle. "We just showed them that this planet has new predators now." Above the planet, the Indomitable engaged swarm ships in orbit. The ship's weapons were different from technology. Missiles with explosive warheads that fired metal slugs at incredible speeds, nuclear-tipped torpedoes. "They are adapting to our missiles," reported. "We need to switch tactics." "Use the," ordered. "Let's see them adapt to a chunk of metal moving at Mach 50. The fired. Solid metal rods punched through swarm ships like they were nothing. The enemy vessels broke apart, their adaptive armor useless against simple kinetic force. On this capital city, Chancellor Vila watched the battle through her command center. Her people were still evacuating, but the humans were buying them time. Medic had set up a field hospital near the refugee ships. Wounded were brought to him. He worked quickly, treating injuries. They were amazed. They expected the predator species to be cruel but was gentle with his patients. "Why do you help us?" one wounded asked him. "You are warriors, you kill so easily." Looked up from bandaging the alien's injury. "We fight when we must, but we are also healers, builders, teachers. We contain many things." He smiled softly. "We choose which part of ourselves to show." Back on the beach, and his Marines had secured the area. Dead swarm creatures covered the sand. The humans had not lost a single soldier. Approached again. "Your species is terrifying," he said honestly. "You fight like nothing we have ever seen." "Good," replied, "because we are just getting started." Captain watched from the Indomitable as more swarm ships entered the system. This battle was far from over. But for the first time, they had hope. The beasts from Earth had come to their rescue. And the swarm was learning what it meant to face humanity. The asteroid belt had become a nightmare. What was once a mining operation was now a breeding ground for the swarm. Massive hive structures grew on the larger asteroids, pumping out new swarm creatures every hour. Studied the sensor readings on the Indomitable's bridge. She had been awake for 30 hours straight, surviving on coffee and determination. "Captain, I found their weakness." Looked up from his command chair. He had not slept much either. "Tell me." "The swarm adapts to energy weapons because they absorb the radiation and learn from it," explained. She pulled up diagrams showing swarm biology. "But look at this. They have never encountered kinetic weapons before. Bullets, missiles, explosives. The civilized galaxy stopped using those weapons thousands of years ago." "Because they are primitive," said. "Because they are messy," corrected with a dark smile. "Energy weapons are clean, precise, civilized. The galaxy forgot that sometimes you need to get your hands dirty." His voice came through the speakers from engineering. "I have an idea about that. The Indomitable has mining equipment for asteroid operations. I can convert the drilling lasers into magnetic accelerators. We can throw rocks at them fast enough to punch through anything." "Do it," ordered. "How long?" "Give me 6 hours," said, "and try not to get us blown up before then." The plan was simple but dangerous. The Indomitable would enter the asteroid field and destroy the hive structures before they could produce more swarm ships, and his Marines would board the largest asteroid and plant nuclear charges deep inside. Lieutenant briefed his team in the deployment bay. 50 Marines, all volunteers, all trained for the most dangerous missions. We go in fast and hard, plant the charges, get out, no heroics, everyone comes home. One of his Marines, a young woman named, raised her hand. Sir, what if the swarm is already inside the asteroid when we arrive? Then we kill them, said simply. Any other questions? There were none. The Indomitable moved into the asteroid field. The swarm ships swarmed around them immediately. Dozens of enemy vessels, all trying to cut off their escape. Launching missiles, reported. Impact in 10 seconds. The missiles hit the swarm ships, but the damage was less than expected. The swarm was adapting already, their hulls growing harder against the explosives. Ready, announced. Fire ordered. The converted mining equipment roared to life. Metal slugs the size of cars launched at incredible speeds. They tore through the swarm ships like paper. The enemy vessels had no defense against simple physics. Mass times velocity equals destruction. The Indomitable cleared a path to the largest asteroid, and his Marines launched from the ship in armored pods. They crashed onto the asteroid's surface and immediately began moving toward the drill site. The scientist had joined the mission against everyone's advice. He wanted to understand how humans fought. He floated behind the Marines in his protective suit, struggling with the lower gravity. Stay close to me, ordered. If shooting starts, get behind cover. I understand, said, though his translator made his fear obvious. They found the entrance to the asteroid's interior. It had been a mining tunnel once, but the swarm had expanded it into something else. Organic structures made of silicon and metal grew along the walls. A faint purple light glowed from deeper inside. That is a hatchery, whispered in horror. They are breeding more swarm inside. Then we blow it up, said. He signaled his team forward. They moved through the tunnels carefully. The swarm had sensors everywhere. Halfway to the core, they found the first resistance. Swarm creatures poured out of side tunnels, their limbs scraping against the walls with horrible screeching sounds. Contact, a Marine shouted. The tunnel exploded with gunfire. Bullets tore through the swarm creatures. But in the tight space, the aliens had an advantage. They came from every direction. Pulled a blade from his belt and met a swarm creature head-on. The fight was brutal and fast. The creature tried to stab him with its limbs but was faster. He drove the blade into its core and the creature shattered. Watched in shock. The civilized galaxy had banned close combat as barbaric, but the humans used it naturally, like breathing. They fought with their hands, their blades, even their armored helmets when needed. Keep moving, shouted. They fought through 3 more swarm ambushes before reaching the asteroid's core. The hatchery was massive. Hundreds of swarm eggs lined the walls, pulsing with that purple light. New creatures were being born every minute. Plant the charges, ordered, 5 minutes. His Marines spread out, placing nuclear devices around the chamber, worked on the main charge while covered her. More swarm creatures approached, but the Marines held them back. Charge is set, reported. Timer is active. We have 12 minutes to get out. They ran. The swarm realized what was happening and threw everything they had at the humans. The retreat was a fighting withdrawal through narrow tunnels filled with enemies. Fell behind. A swarm creature grabbed his suit. He screamed, turned back, grabbed with one hand and fired his rifle with the other. They made it to the surface with 2 minutes to spare. The pods launched back to the Indomitable. Below them, the asteroid erupted in a nuclear fireball. The explosion spread through the tunnel network, destroying the entire hatchery. Thousands of swarm creatures died in seconds. On the ship's bridge, watched the explosion. Target the other asteroids. Hit them before they can evacuate. The Indomitable's weapons tore through the asteroid field. Missiles and converted mining lasers destroyed hive after hive. The swarm tried to stop them, but human tactics kept changing. The enemy could not adapt fast enough. After 6 hours, the asteroid field was clear. The swarm's production had been stopped. Found in the medical bay, the lieutenant was getting stitches for a cut on his arm. "You saved my life," said. "Thank you." Shrugged, "You are part of the team now." "I do not understand humans," admitted. "You are so violent, so brutal in combat, but you also protect the weak. You risk yourselves for strangers. How can you be both things?" Thought for a moment. "My grandmother used to say that humans are like water. We can be gentle rain that helps plants grow, or we can be a tsunami that destroys everything. We choose which one based on what is needed." "What is needed now?" asked. "Now," smiled grimly, "now we be the tsunami. The swarm is about to learn that humans are the most dangerous thing in this galaxy." Captain received a report from. "More swarm ships are entering the system. A lot more. They are bringing reinforcements." "Let them come," said. "We are not done yet." The massive swarm ship appeared at the edge of the system like a dark moon. It was 10 times larger than any vessel they had ever seen. Sensor readings showed it was not just a ship, but a living command center for the entire swarm in this region. "That is the Queen Node," Chancellor Vila said through the communication link. Her voice was filled with despair. "Our records show it is the central mind that controls all other swarm creatures. If it is here, they plan to consume our entire world." Captain stared at the enormous ship on his display. Around it, hundreds of smaller swarm vessels formed a protective wall. "How do we kill it?" "You cannot," Vila said simply. "The Queen Node has armor designed to resist all known weapons, energy shields that adapt instantly. It has destroyed entire fleets by itself." Ran calculations at her station. "She is right, Captain. We do not have enough firepower. Even our nuclear missiles would not penetrate that armor." Was quiet for a long moment. His crew watched him, waiting. They had followed him through impossible situations before. They trusted him to find a way. "What if we do not attack from outside?" said slowly. "What if we attack from inside?" "How?" asked from engineering. "That thing is not going to let us dock and walk in." "No," agreed, "but it might let us crash." He explained his plan. The Indomitable would pretend to be damaged and fleeing. The Queen Node would pursue, thinking it had won. At the last moment, they would turn and ram directly into the Queen Node's main body. The Indomitable's reactor would be set to overload. The explosion would destroy both ships from the inside where the armor was weakest. The crew was silent. It was a suicide mission. "There has to be another way," said quietly. "If there is, I cannot see it," replied. "But the crew will evacuate to ships before impact. I will stay behind to make sure the reactor detonates." "Captain, no," protested. "There must be another option." Spoke up from his medical station. He had been quiet through most of the mission, focused on healing the wounded. "The reactor needs someone to trigger it manually if the timer fails. We cannot risk the Queen Node surviving. I will stay." "You do not have to do this," said. The medic smiled gently. "I joined this mission because my family died in the Soul pandemic. I could not save them, but maybe I can save the... Give my life meaning, Captain." Felt something break inside him, but he knew was right. Someone had to stay. "You are a good man." "I try to be," replied. The Indomitable began its false retreat. They fired random shots behind them and vented atmosphere to look damaged. The swarm fleet pursued, led by the Queen Node. The massive ship moved slowly but steadily, confident in its power. They evacuated all their remaining civilians to the southern continent. They watched from their command centers as the human ship led their enemy away from the... "They are sacrificing themselves for us," Vila said. Tears ran down her face. Her species did not cry often, but this moment deserved it. On the Indomitable, the crew prepared to abandon ship, gathered his marines, all their tactical data to send to Earth, set the reactor to overload on signal. Captain found in the medical bay. The doctor was calm, organizing his supplies like he always did. "Make sure they know we came because we wanted to help," said. "Not because we wanted glory or payment. Tell them humanity can be good." "I will," promised. The crew evacuated to the escape pods. One by one, they launched toward the rescue ships, had to physically pull away from the ship. He wanted to stay with, but the medic had sealed the bridge door. The Indomitable turned hard. The Queen node realized the trap too late. The human ship accelerated directly at the massive swarm vessel. The impact was tremendous. The Indomitable's armored bow punched through the Queen node's outer hull and buried deep into its core. Check the reactor. The timer had failed just as they feared. He would have to trigger it manually. Through the ship's sensors, he could see the swarm trying to seal the breach. They knew something was wrong. He activated the communication system one last time. "This is Medic of Earth. If anyone is listening, tell my brother that I am not afraid. Tell him I did something that mattered." He pressed the detonation button. The explosion was visible from the Queen node, and the Indomitable disappeared in a ball of nuclear fire. The blast was so powerful it created a temporary tear in space itself. But something incredible happened. The swarm fleet stopped moving. Every ship, every creature, suddenly became confused and uncoordinated. The Queen node had been controlling them all through telepathic links. When it died, the pain of its death echoed through the entire hive mind. For the first time in recorded history, the swarm felt fear. The remaining swarm ships began to retreat. They fled the system in chaos, running from an enemy they could not understand, predators that could hurt them in ways they had never experienced. Watched from a rescue ship, his face was hard but his eyes were wet. "Goodbye, brother." Stood beside, they both stared at where the Indomitable had been. "He saved them all," she said quietly. "He saved us too," replied. "He reminded us why we fight, not for territory or resources. We fight to protect people who cannot protect themselves." The ships moved to intercept the fleeing swarm. With human weapons and tactics, they hunted down the remaining enemy vessels. The battle lasted 3 more days, but the outcome was certain. The swarm was broken. Chancellor Vila stood on the observation deck of her command ship. She watched the last swarm ship explode in the distance. Her world was saved. Her people would survive. But the cost had been paid by strangers from a distant world, by humans who had every reason to ignore their call for help, but came anyway. She thought about the gentle medic who had given everything to save people he barely knew. She thought about his last words. He wanted to matter. He wanted his life to mean something. "You mattered," Vila whispered to the stars. "We will make sure everyone knows what you did." The human crew gathered on the flagship. They were exhausted, wounded, and heartbroken, but they had won. The impossible mission was complete. Looked at his team. "Sacrifice will not be forgotten. We came here to help and we did. Now we rebuild." They began rescue operations across their world. Humans and aliens worked together, treating the wounded and recovering what could be saved. The beasts from Earth had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten. Sometimes the answer to violence is not peace. Sometimes it is stronger violence directed at those who hurt the innocent. And sometimes, the most civilized thing you can do is be willing to become a monster to stop something worse. 6 months had passed since the battle. There was healing. New buildings rose where the swarm had destroyed old ones. The water was clean again. The sky had returned to its natural blue. In the capital cities, Central Plaza stood something that had never existed before in culture. A monument to a single individual. Most species built memorials to groups, to causes, to ideas. but the wanted to remember one name. The monument was made of crystal that caught the sunlight. Carved into it was a simple message in both and human languages. Of Earth. He came when no one else would. He gave everything so others could live. Chancellor Vila visited the monument every day. Today, Captain joined her. He had stayed to help with reconstruction efforts. His crew had become part of the community. Your people ask about him often, Vila said. They want to know what kind of person gives their life for strangers. A good one, replied simply. He touched the crystal gently. Believed that every life had value. That included alien lives he had never met before. The galaxy is talking about what happened here, Vila continued. Some species are afraid of humanity now. They call you dangerous, unstable, too violent for civilized space. And what do you think? Asked. Vila's colors shifted to a warm gold. I think you are exactly what you need to be. The galaxy has become soft. We forgot that sometimes kindness requires strength. Compassion requires the ability to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Across the city, worked in an engineering facility. She was teaching them how to build defensive weapons. The scientists were terrified of the technology at first. Weapons that could destroy instead of create went against everything they believed. But they were learning. Slowly, carefully, they studied human military technology, not to become conquerors but to never be victims again. This design seems simple, one engineer said, studying blueprints. Why did we never think of it? Because you never needed to, explained. You built a civilization based on peace. That is beautiful, but peace only works when everyone agrees to it. The swarm did not agree. So we must change, the engineer said sadly. Not completely, corrected. Keep your culture of peace. Keep your art and music and philosophy. Just add the ability to defend it. Being able to fight does not mean you have to fight. In the military training grounds, Lieutenant worked with volunteers, the first generation of soldiers. They were awkward with weapons, uncomfortable with violence, but they were determined. Had joined the volunteer force. The scientist had seen what the swarm could do. He understood now that knowledge alone could not stop every threat. I feel wrong doing this, admitted to during a break. My people believe violence is never the answer. Violence is not the answer to most problems, agreed. But sometimes, like with the swarm, it is the only answer. The trick is knowing the difference. How do humans know the difference? Asked. Thought carefully before answering. We do not always know. We make mistakes. We sometimes fight when we should talk, but we try to choose based on one rule: protect those who cannot protect themselves. Fight only when necessary, but when you fight, fight to win. Nodded slowly. The swarm gave us no choice. Exactly, said. Now let's practice your shooting stance again. You are still dropping your shoulder. Captain received an urgent message in his quarters. It was from Earth Command, but the encryption suggested something important. He opened it with present. Admiral Park's face appeared on the screen. She looked concerned. Captain, we have a situation. 3 other species have sent distress calls to Earth. They are facing swarm incursions and specifically requesting human assistance. Leaned forward, 3 different species. The who refused to help the Admiral continued. The Empire, who also turned away from the distress call, and a new species we have never heard of called the. All 3 are facing the same threat they faced. Karma muttered. The government is debating how to respond, Admiral Park said. Some politicians want to refuse to teach them a lesson about abandoning allies. Others want to help because it is the right thing to do. I wanted your opinion, Captain. You were there. You saw what the swarm can do. Was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the sacrifice, about what it meant to be human. We should help them, he finally said. Not because they deserve it, but because their civilians do not deserve to die. We do not fight for governments or politics. We fight for the people who cannot fight for themselves. Admiral Park smiled. I was hoping you would say that. Congratulations on your promotion, Admiral. You are being given command of the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. 5 ships, all equipped with human and hybrid technology. Your mission is to respond to these distress calls. I accept, said. One more thing, the Admiral added. They are sending 3 of their new warships to join your fleet. They insist on helping. They say they have learned from humanity that strength should be used to protect others. After the call ended, looked at. A fleet. We are actually forming a fleet to protect alien species. Not just us, corrected. Humans and together. Maybe others will join eventually. We can show the galaxy a different way. In the orbital shipyards above, the new vessels were under construction. They were beautiful in their own way, combining artistic design with human military function. Sleek hulls with powerful weapons. Science vessels that could also fight. The largest ship bore the names Hope in both languages. It would be the flagship of the joint human fleet. Chancellor Vila presided over the launch ceremony. Representatives from Earth stood beside leaders. In the crowd were, and the rest of the crew who had saved this world. 6 months ago, we sent out a cry for help, Vila said to the gathered crowd. The civilized galaxy ignored us. They said we were already dead. They abandoned us to the darkness. But one species answered, a species the galaxy called primitive, violent, dangerous. They came anyway. She paused, her colors shifting to show deep emotion. We learned that civilization is not measured by how advanced your technology is. It is not measured by how peaceful your society is. True civilization is measured by what you do when others need help, by whether you stand up for those who cannot stand for themselves. The humans showed us that sometimes the most civilized thing you can do is be willing to fight, not for conquest, not for glory, but to protect the innocent. Today, we launch a new kind of fleet, one built on the idea that strength should serve compassion, that military power should defend life, not take it. We go to help the species that ignored our cries, because that is what would have wanted. That is what humanity taught us. The ships launched one by one, their engines bright against the stars. Admiral stood on the bridge of hope, watching the fall away behind them. Where to first? Asked from her station. The system decided. They need help even if they do not deserve it. Do you think this will work? Wondered. Can we really protect the whole galaxy? No, admitted. But we can protect the parts we reach. We can show others that there is another way. Eventually, maybe the galaxy will remember how to protect itself. Entered the bridge. My Marines are ready, Admiral. Good, said, because the swarm is still out there, and now they know humanity exists. This fight is just beginning. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, disappearing into the stars. Behind them, they continued to heal. Children played in the rebuilt cities. Artists created new works celebrating their survival. Scientists studied both peace and war, learning to balance both. And every day, people visited the crystal monument in the central plaza. They touched the name carved there, of Earth, the alien who became one of them, the doctor who taught them that being civilized meant being willing to fight for what matters. In the far reaches of space, the swarm stirred. They had learned fear from the humans, but they were adapting, evolving, planning. The war was not over. But now the galaxy had defenders, beasts from Earth who chose to be guardians, and slowly other species were learning to do the same. The cry for help had been answered by monsters, but those monsters chose to be heroes instead, and that choice made all the difference.